Australia to today.
What we need is...
Where you stay in Baghdad, if you're a journalist, you see sandbags against the window, bars on the windows. Against whom, it's hard to say, because we're right in the middle of what we call the green zone. There are ministers living down here. You can see some of their security guys running up and down the street here. There's a bloke here with a Kalashnikov or something of that sort. There are chaps in berets further down. And the mix of people living here are ministers, generals in the new Iraqi army, and construction workers. The problem, of course, in the green zone is that even that has become less secure over time. Yet it is, of course, an oasis of security compared with what lies beyond the walls. Just beyond the trees in the far distance is the real Baghdad, and that's where the killing continues on a nightly basis. The odd thing about being in the green zone is that there is a complete disconnect between what we're experiencing and what people outside experience. Very, very difficult when reading the Iraq study out from Washington only this week to connect with the overview of this deteriorating, disintegrating situation and the apparent security of where I'm standing now. I want just to sort of take you down here because there's a general living on the corner just down here, and behind him is the old office of Tariq Aziz. Now, Tariq Aziz was the Prime Minister who really kind of bolstered Saddam Hussein's entire tyranny. And a tyranny it was. But the question that's on the lips of many people now is, has the situation in Iraq now got so bad, matters are actually worse now than they were under Saddam Hussein? It's a difficult one to resolve. Under Saddam Hussein, certainly people died in large numbers, usually in waves of attacks on people like the Shia around Karbala, just after the Gulf War in 1991. But people were also picked off because they were disloyal or because they were caught talking out of turn, that kind of a thing. Now, nobody knows why they're picked off. Nobody knows where you might be picked off. And it also though there is some kind of structure to the tyranny of the time. It was possible to know the sort of people who might get bumped off, who might get arrested, who might get imprisoned for life, who might get tortured. Now, there's no way of knowing. 76 bodies turned up in Karbala this week, a Shia shrine city. And, you know, nobody knows who tortured them, who shot them. But there they were, dumped in a Shia cemetery. One of those things you can never really detect or know why it happened. The other day I asked our translator, are things worse? And he pointed to a ceiling. He wouldn't speak in the room where we were. He was afraid of being overheard.
Why a strange alignment of galaxies may put cosmology in a spin.
Catching the wave before it strikes. Australia gets a real-life test of its tsunami alert system.
It isn't easy being green. A study of plant color on alien worlds gives new meaning to the term black forest.
And frozen fruit. Our last word column journeys into the refrigerator to explain why bananas change colour when they get cold. Cosmologists have always known that our universe is a strange place. According to some new evidence, it might be even stranger than anyone realised. That evidence involves an unusual asymmetry that keeps cropping up in astronomical data. An asymmetry that scientists have taken to calling the axis of evil. Now for the latest on this bizarre physics reporter, Zia Morali.
Zia, I think we probably need some background here. Can you tell us how cosmologists first became aware of this property of the universe known as the axis of evil?
Well, first of all, according to standard cosmology, the universe should look very much the same in every direction, and so that's what they were expecting to find. But the problems began when they began examining the cosmic microwave background, or CMB, in more detail. So the CMB is the faint microwave cloud left across the sky after the Big Bang, and provides a snapshot of the universe about 380,000 years after the Big Bang.
Right, and even even though that's not visible to the eye, I guess with microwave detectors we see it in all directions in space.
Yes, exactly. And NASA's Rollins microwave isotropic ray created a very nice detailed map on very slight temperature variations that you can see in the background. Now, at first glance, everything was fine, and when cosmologists looked at the distribution of hot and cold spots across the sky, they found that they seemed to be randomly distributed, just exactly as you would expect if everything looked like preciously looked. But when cosmologists came to land on Round Asia and Imperial College London, looked at the map in more detail by filtering out different components and looking at them separately, they found something very mysterious. They found that some of the cold and hot spots seemed to line up suspiciously along a line, which it totally shouldn't have done, and they called this line the axis of evil.
Now, I just want to make sure I can picture what this line is like. Is it a line that runs through us as observers, so we see things on either side of us in the background, or is it something that we see running across some fraction of the cosmic background?
It's sort of running at sort of 90 degrees to us, so perpendicular to the galactic plane of the Milky Way.
So, Zia, I see your point that if the cosmic background is supposed to be a signal that's basically uniform in all directions, this is really a fly in the ointment to see something that looks like a preferred direction or preferred orientation. You know, I mean, what are the implications? What could this...
We talked of Afghanistan and the resurgent Taliban. A group of the Iranians had already helped the Americans defeat months after 9/11. We talked of the disintegration of order in Iraq, of the Wahhabist forces who orchestrated 9/11, which are so entwined in the society of Saudi Arabia. And we talked of nuclear Israel, forever reportedly contemplating a bomb run on Tehran. Finally, we talked of nuclear America, present in two of Iran's neighbors, where talk has at times included possible military action against Iran. My friend is a reformist with no time for President Ahmadinejad, but on his country's security he is in no doubt. We would be mad not to build a nuclear bomb. Mr. Howells is still talking about
No, his job title, to be sure, was the administrator of the Coalition Provisional Authority. But, you know, he was, for all intents and purposes, the viceroy. He had viceroy-like powers. He could issue laws simply with the sweep of his pen. He was in charge of determining how Iraq's oil revenue would be spent. He was in charge of running the government for the 15 months that the United States was the occupying power in Iraq. He was the closest thing that comes to a modern-day viceroy.
So it is an extraordinary situation, and you've described the setup there obviously as a bubble. In a way, it's also an image of, for a lefty like myself, of America itself in its isolationist mindset, despite the fact that it's embroiled in more or less every brutal conflict zone around the world.
Yes, and you know, I think it was intentional. I think that you know, Americans they want comforts of home, but there's something deeper. A lot of the Americans went to fix Iraq in those early years. They were armed with this conviction that the American way was the best way. That the way that you make Iraq a stable and successful country is to bring a Western-style Jeffersonian democracy and transplant it, to bring an American-style capitalism and have Iraqis embrace that. And many other aspects of the way we govern ourselves in the United States.
Once again, you know, he
wasn't
looking for any kind of
in some ways that was the most pernicious aspect. Iraqis, make no mistake about it, they want a democratic
parts of the sky that are very widely separated should be related in any way.
They don't want somebody to build it for them. They need it to generate organically.
Yes, and paradoxically, that despite the efforts to impose American-style democracy, what seems to be happening, they seem to be sort of reproducing some of the warped structures of Saddam Hussein's regime.
Well, there are interesting ironies there.